Good morning, yogis. So this is morning time gentle yoga. We're gonna spend about an hour doing some nice, easy going yoga. Perfect for a day when you want to do a little bit of resting and a little bit of stretching. And just feel good all over. That is what is on our agenda for today. So what you might need are a blanket, and you can use any kind of blanket. I'm going to use this just striped blanket. It's relatively thin, but you can fold it up in lots of different directions. Hi! So get yourself a blanket. If you would like to have a couple of yoga blocks, you can do those. Those might come in handy, but we're going to use a strap. So if you have a yoga strap, get a yoga strap. If you don't have one of those, then you can use anything that would work that way, a scarf or a towel or a blanket, anything like that. A blanket, maybe a blanket would be too big, but a strap or a towel or a scarf would work. A dog leash, something along that line. And then if you have a pillow, you can get a pillow to put under your legs. At the beginning here, we're going to do some things laying on our back. All right. So, we're going to start laying down. I'm going to put this underneath my legs. I'm going to put a blanket underneath my head. A throw pillow or even another blanket would work under your legs if you don't have a big pillow. Yoga bolster. Okay. Now, trying to find the just right amount of support can be interesting, so you're just going to play with your bum. So once you've gotten yourself settled in to a position that feels nice, we're just going to pause here. So we'll come back to this pose at the very end as well. And we'll just let ourselves relax for a few moments and breathe. So just take note of sort of how it feels to be in your body today. You might notice whether one shoulder blade has the same amount of weight on it as the other one. The arms feel symmetrical, or maybe one side feels a little tighter than the other. Similarly with the legs and the hips. Notice your breath, notice your body, just become curious about what it's like to occupy your body in this moment right here. Deep breaths, yogis. Take a nice big inhale. Give yourself a little stretch. Ooh. And then bring your knees in. Give your back just a little bit of a massage. Hold onto the legs or not. I like to do a little circle right around the sacrum in each direction a couple times. Alright. So we're going to start with a kind of a lunge. Now, for me, it's usually okay to have almost nothing underneath my hips. But some people like a more elevated hip, so you might test it out, and then if you want a little bit more sensation, you can put either the pillow that you've got under your legs, under your hips, or you could put a yoga block under there. So I'm going to start by just taking this pillow out. It's possible I'll put it back in, but I think I'm going to go without. And then the left leg is going to go all the way out straight, and we're going to bring the right knee in. Now let's just start by holding onto it like this for a second if you can. If you can't hold your leg, don't worry about it. And then spin the foot in some circular shapes. So we've got the right leg coming in and the right foot going around in circles. Left leg just resting for right now. After a bit, circle the other way. And then point and flex. Either hold there, or you can reach in here and grab hold of the foot like kind of a happy baby. We're going to keep the knee bent, bring the leg towards the side, and then we're going to really actively stretch through this left hip. So if you feel a stretch on the front of your left thigh, or left front of the left hip, then that's what we're after. If you don't feel anything, elevate the hips, so you can put that blocker, pillow, or even your blanket underneath there, and that'll give you a little bit of a lift to create a little bit more of an opportunity for the leg to drop into this stretch. Now generally, even though this is relatively mild for me, I still feel it, and so it's still doing some work. And so sometimes I like to go for mild, hence the gentle yoga. The name gentle yoga. So I'm actively reaching that leg out there, gonna try to give myself a little opening right here. I can even stretch up through my left arm to kind of create a little bit more length. Okay, so then we're going to take one more breath here, and then relax a little bit. We're going to take the left foot into, or the right foot into the left hand, put the right hand on the thigh, and then just give that leg a little back and forth motion. I think I left my strap all the way down on the other side of my mat. But that's going to be the next part. So we're going to wrap the strap around the foot, or you can hold onto your big toe with your peace sign fingers and extend your leg. I like using the strap. If I can figure out where I left it, I'll be in good shape. Oh, there it is. It was right next to me. All right, here we are. So you can use the strap with a loop. I like to use the loop, and sometimes if I want to get really, really relaxed, I'll use the tail of the strap under my back, so it goes over the right shoulder and under the left shoulder. So it comes all the way out the left side of the waist. And then you don't even have to hold on to it because your upper back will hold it for you. This is super relaxed. Okay, and then you can also, if you want to get even more relaxed, you can take a pillow and put it underneath that left leg. So now you can let that area we were just stretching go completely soft. So now the back of the thigh on the right side is what we're really interested in. And if I rotate my leg a little bit towards the right or a little towards the left, I'll get slightly different sensations because slightly different muscles will take over. If I pull my toes down and push up through my heel, the sensation is a little bit different. You can also bend the knee and straighten the leg to change things up. So we're going to stay here for about another minute. Just and play with that stretch, work with the stretch. breaths here to go. Take a big breath. Now we're going to take the leg out to the side. So I'm going to turn a little bit on the diagonal. I'm going to use the same pillow now under this hip so that I've got a little bit of something to support me. A block works really great there, or even a rolled up blanket. I've used a rolled up, just a bath towel before, and that works pretty great. So anything you've got that you can kind of stick up under the edge of your hips, and just to give yourself a little bit of support. You can also do it without any support. Sometimes for me, this area right here by the knee and the inner thigh feels really vulnerable. So having that little extra bit of support is helpful. Now you can engage your core a little bit more, kind of draw the sides of your waist in, just to help hold your hips nice and steady. And again, we're gonna stay for a little while so you can bend at the knee, you can straighten out the leg. I'm gonna stay for about just shy of another minute. As much rotation this way, but there's a little bit. I can rotate a little bit that way so my toes, my inner thigh comes around, a little bit that way so the inner thigh goes that way, and it just changes the way the stretch feels. Slightly different muscles take over. This muscle here in the inner thigh is really quite large. It fills up basically all the space from here to the bone is full of that muscle. It's quite a big expansive muscle. Lots of little fibers to it. It has friends, but this big adductor longus is one of the muscles that you're really feeling probably. Great yogis. So we're going to take a big breath. Come on back to the center. Now we're going to take the leg all the way over into a twist. So I'm going to take it off of my shoulder real quick. And then I'm going to let the strap kind of pull my ribs into the stretch. That feels kind of fun. You can also take a pillow and put it in here so that you can kind of prop one leg on top of the other a little bit. And then roll your shoulders down towards the floor if you can. If that twist feels all right in your back. You can deepen it a little bit by really anchoring through that right shoulder. Leg comes over to the left. Left yogis. All right, we're going to take a nice big breath. We're going to come all the way back. Now, once you get back, go ahead and slip the strap off your foot. I'm going to untangle myself here a little bit. And then we're going to do just a little rinse. I'm going to do really gentle little windshield wipers. Just nice and easy now. And then extend the legs out and just pause for a moment and feel. Usually for me, one side feels a little longer, so my right side feels a little longer, a little softer, a little more relaxed. Especially, what's really interesting to me is it's not just in the leg, but really right between the bottom of my ribs and the bottom of my pelvis. That feels longer and a little bit more relaxed and towards the ground, which I find interesting. All right, so we're going to repeat that whole thing on the other side, y'all. So we're going to take the left leg and bring it in. You can hold it cool. If not, don't sweat that part. Just let your right leg rest for now. And then we're going to spin the left foot in circles. direction after a bit if you haven't already. And point and flex your foot. Feels good, doesn't it? All right, yogis. So we're going to take this, and again, you can just stay right there, or maybe grab hold of that foot, and then we're going to really actively extend out through this right thigh, right hip. Try to reach that leg out. I'm trying to make my right leg like 2 or 3 inches longer if I could. Oh, that'd be nice. If I could just make myself taller, I could reach the top shelf in the kitchen. Oh. Probably not going to work out, but girl can try. We got 2 more breaths here. And we're going to relax there. Oh, give ourselves a little bit of rinse. I'm going to stick this pillow under there, just so I can now really let that hip relax while I work on the hamstrings on this side. So I'm going to use the strap because I like it. And again, you can do it with the strap, or you can just hold on to your leg or your foot. Try to find what feels like a pretty good place to start with your hamstrings. You can always go a little bit more, but if you start in so tight that you start to tense up, it's not always, like start with just a little bit of sensation, and then if things kind of start to go away and it gets lighter, then you can add on. And again, you can do these little movements where you kind of rotate the leg, bend the knee a little. Stay for about another minute here. Just playing with the stretch, being present, breathing deep. All the good yoga stuff. Breaths left. I'm going to really go for my calf muscles right now. Pulling my toes down. All right. Whew. And then we're going to take the leg out to the side. Again, you can add a little support there as you need. I'm going to kind of work my side waist a little bit, draw in so I keep my hips nice and stable. Again, you can do a little bit of bending and straightening the leg to sort of play with the stretch on the inner thigh. You start to feel really vulnerable up here where the inner part of your knee is. Just be mindful of that. Breathing yogis, we got about 30 seconds left. Take a nice big breath. We're coming on back to the center. Oh, we're going to go across the body into a twist. And again, it might be nice to have a little bit of support there. So you can throw in a pillow. I'm going to run into the furnishings. So I'm going to bend my knee and go into the twist that way. But you can keep the strap on if you like. give me similar niceness without. And again, I'm kind of working my left shoulder toward the floor as my legs come across here. Just to create a little bit more work for the abs. For about 30 more seconds. Never take a breath. Take a nice big breath. We're going to come on back to the center. And then, nice and easy now. Give yourself a little windshield wipery. Goodness. Set that off to the side for now. Now, we're going to keep the legs in this little position. It's kind of like a bridge shape. We're going to take the arms up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to lift as high as we can. So it's like you're trying to touch the ceiling and then come on back down. Now the head is supposed to just kind of go along for the ride. If you have trouble with that or your neck is a little vulnerable, you can try putting like a little roll of blanket underneath your head or underneath your neck. So there's a little bit of kind of a sense that your head isn't really touching the floor quite as hard. And then as you reach up, it might be not quite as intense, like pressure on the back of the head, okay? What we're trying to do is we're trying to use the muscles in the torso and the upper shoulder area to do this work and not the neck. So keeping the neck just kind of going along for the ride as best you can. So reach up so the shoulder blade comes way up off the edge and then drop it back down into the back. Reach up, drop it back down. Reach up, drop it back down. Now, I'm going to grab hold of an elbow. So I've got one arm on top, and in this case it's my right arm. So just remembering that for next time. So we're going to lift up through the elbows and reaching up through the arms. We're going to take the elbows over the head and then keep stretching up through your arms. So it's the same thing. We're still reaching. We're just reaching with the elbow. Coming up over the head and coming back to the beginning. And one more time like that, up over the head. Stretch your elbows way up over your head. And then come on back, and then we're going to switch which arm is on top. So now my left arm's on top, same idea. Come up over the head, and back. Reach the elbows up, come up over the head, and back. Reach them up, come up over the head, and back. Now, I'm going to grab hold of my right upper arm. I'm going to pull it across, and I'm going to try to let that right shoulder stay heavy. So I've got kind of this stretch going in two directions. I'm trying to pull my arm, and I'm simultaneously trying to plant that shoulder back down into the floor. And you can figure out, like, should I go a little bit lower, a little bit higher with that arm bone to get just right. It's not meant to be a super big stretch, so if it just feels like a little something, that's about right. Like I can feel that I'm working there to try to go in two different directions, but there's not any pain or discomfort. So I'm going to do the other side. Grab the left elbow and pulling that across, and I'm simultaneously trying to get heavier through that shoulder. Pull across and get heavy. Pull across and get heavy. More breaths. Alright, so we're going to let go with the arms, give them a little shimmy, and shake out. And then we're going to roll onto our side. So this is kind of the transition between this part of class and the other part. Now I'm going to roll onto my right side first, so I'm going to be facing away from you, but hopefully you'll still get what's going on. I'm going to scoot a little bit this way, and then I'm going to roll this way, and then I might want a little bit more support under my head, so I'm going to fold my blanket one more time and see if that's enough, maybe one more. So you're just going to build up enough support that your head feels like it rests nice and easy, pretty close to in line or in alignment with your shoulder, your spine. Like where would your head be most neutral? Okay. So now my right arm is sticking straight out. I'm going to stick my left arm straight out on top of that. The left arm is going to be the moving arm. So I'm going up and over, and I'm reaching out to the side as far as I can go. And about the point where my arm is just below chest height, I'm going to come all the way back across. So the left arm is going to go over my head as best you can, a full arcing range of motion. Reach out through that arm, and then bring it back. Okay? Reach overhead. Reach out to the side. If there's any issue with this range of motion, just do the range of motion that works for you. So if you need to stop somewhere, stop along the way. Okay, 2 more like that. Nice and big. Bringing it out. And bringing it back. And 1 more nice and big. Bringing it out. And bringing it back. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to roll to the other side. So support your head whatever way it makes sense. And then we're going to take this top arm. It's going to go out to the side. And again, I'm going to reach through that arm and bring it back. I'm trying mostly to keep my hips pretty stable. They go with me a little bit. Hey there, buddy plant. Okay. Try to avoid my plant friend there. Stretch. Come on back. Over the head. Stretch. Come on back. We're going to do it twice more. Over the head to stretch. Go as slow as you need to. If you need to slow this down, just slow it down a little bit. And then 1 more time. All the way up and around. Whoops. And then come on back. All right, so we're going to bring ourselves to a seated position when we're done with that. Now, if it's helpful, you can sit up on a blanket or on a pillow of some sort. You just are going to take a relatively simple cross-legged position. We're going to get ourselves in a position where it feels like the spine is relatively neutral. This is where sitting up on a blanket can be helpful. If it feels like your pelvis wants to lean backwards, sitting on the edge of a blanket can help bring it up. So if it feels like it's pretty neutral, you're in good shape. We're going to pause here and drop the chin. We're going to roll the head up and over one shoulder, and then come back. Roll the head up and over the other shoulder. So we're just going to go back and forth like that a few times. Okay, now we're going to go back 1 more time, and then we're going to leave the head over to the right. So if you need to roll it to the right, roll it to your right. And then keeping the head on the right side, we're going to take this left shoulder and we're going to draw it back a little bit, and then you're going to let your head roll back also. So we're going to try to get to this muscle right here in the front. Kind of comes up and attaches to the back of the skull, just about behind the jaw. Attaches to a collarbone. So I might even take my hand out to the side to help with that. Now I'm gonna, similarly, I'm gonna roll my head, but this time slightly forward. And I'm looking for a muscle that comes up the back of my neck, and then I'm going to draw my shoulder blade down. So you're just feeling out the little muscles that live on that left side of the neck. Okay, relax the shoulder blade, bring the hand back into the lap, bring your head back to the center. I'm leaving my chin down for a second. Just gonna give that left side a little bit of love. And then I'm gonna roll my head over to the left. And similarly, I'm gonna try to find this stretch right here first. So I'm gonna let the head kind of go back at the diagonal to the left, draw the collarbone out wider. It's tighter for me on one side than the other. Okay, so I'm going to change tact. Now I'm going to let my head fall a little bit forward, and I'm going to draw my shoulder blade down my back so I get the muscle up here toward the back of the neck. One more big breath here. Okay, so I'm going to slowly bring my arm back. I'm going to bring the head back to the center. And then when I'm ready, float it up. Oh. All right, yogis, we're going to roll the shoulders up, around, and back. Get to the bottom, go the other direction. Rolling forward. Wow, that feels nice, yogis. Okay. We're gonna let the arms sort of settle, let the neck sort of settle. Hopefully that feels pretty nice. I'm gonna put my hair up. So it'll be better up for the next couple of moves. All right, now we're gonna take the legs out into a V. So because we're doing that, I'm gonna take my blanket and open it up a little on the wide side and roll it up. So I have a little bit of blanket underneath both knees. Okay. So for me, that helps me not hyperextend my knees. For some of us, it'll be better to have a little bit of elevation here. Okay, now you don't have to take your legs out as wide apart as they will go. Just in a V shape is enough. It can be a little closer V or a little wider V. That's personal preference. Now once you've got a V shape with your legs, so your legs are out in a V, you're gonna bend one knee. Pick which one you want. So I'm gonna bend my left knee first. Now I can take this blanket and pull it up a little higher, help support my thigh, or I can pull it down a little lower, maybe help support the shin. And you just experiment and see what makes your knee feel the best. So see how it goes. Now we're gonna do 3 different things here. So the first thing we're gonna do is turn towards the bent knee, and we're gonna fold over the bent knee. And I'm gonna let my right sit bone rather come up off the floor, and then I'm gonna try to press it down towards the floor. So I'll feel a little bit more stretch through this part of my low back. Now I don't know what's gonna happen at your house, but notice what it does. So press down through that that right hip. I'm leaning into my left leg, just letting everything come up. And then one more time, I'm gonna press down. Now I'm gonna pause here for 2 minutes. I'm gonna bend my right knee slightly and really engage that leg. Try to pick my kneecap up and everything. One more big breath. Good, so then we're gonna float ourselves up from here. And then just pause for a moment, don't go anywhere, but notice what happened. So notice the muscles in your back, notice this leg, is there a difference? I still feel like I'm turning a little bit that way. Okay. So what happens for me after about 30 seconds of just kind of pausing is often I get this kind of lifting sensation in my body, like a little bit lighter sensation. And it happens like somewhere in that 30-second range, a little bit more, a little bit less. Just notice as we're doing the practice, what happens to you. Okay, so I'm gonna fold forward now, and this one I'm gonna do a little bit different movement. So I'm gonna try to move my back in these kind of cat-cow shapes. So I'm gonna round like a little Halloween cat, and then I'm gonna bring my breastbone forward. I might even float up a little bit to create that length, okay? So a little Halloween back, and a little bit of a cobra back, right? Halloween back, and a little lift. So it's really a subtle movement. So you might be done folding forward. We'll take 2 more breaths together, wherever you have landed. And then we're gonna lift it up. And again, just pause for a moment. Like, bring yourself back up to a taller shape. If you need to move your legs around, you can move the legs around. Notice what happens. Now for me, that one feels very symmetrical, right? The first one we did, I felt a really strong difference on one side of my back than the other. That one quite symmetrical. Now we're gonna do a side bend. So I'm gonna actually kind of bring my pelvis slightly out so that I'm a little more aligned here. And then I'm gonna take this arm up over my ear, and I'm gonna do this really gentle roll. So I'm gonna roll backwards and roll forward, and just feel that shape change, backwards and forwards. Backwards and forwards. So we're just letting ourselves kind of oscillate there. Now you might find one spot that's just calling your name, so that's what you're gonna pause with. And so for me, I'm liking the stretch right here on the side, so I'm gonna pause right there. Energize this leg a little bit because that feels interesting. I'm kind of pressing my elbow in. So we're going to take 2 more breaths. And then we'll come on out of there. And again, we're going to pause. Now I'm going to straighten out both my legs, give them a little jiggle, and just notice how things shift. So right now it feels like I'm still sort of leaning sideways. And the moment where like everything starts to kind of shift is happening right now. It's very subtle. It feels big to me because I'm a little bit overly dramatic, but the reality is it's a very subtle shift. But like there's just kind of subtle yumminess that shows up that I find really lovely. So I'm inclined to do the other side, and hopefully you are as well. So I'm just going to take the legs the other direction. And again, I'm going to fold, starting to fold over top of now my bent right leg. Left leg is straight. Adjust the padding so it's in the right spots for your knees. And then we're going to do this little kind of lean into it. Let this left sit bone come up off the floor, and then anchor that left sit bone toward the ground. And again, for me, what that does is it just stretches these little muscles that live right here in my low back very gently and nicely. So it's not too aggressive a stretch. Feels pretty nice. So we're going to come up. Again, we're just going to pause. See how that landed us. Just waiting for that little sense that everything kind of comes back around. About there. So now we're going to fold forward, and again we're going to kind of play with this little cat back shape, cat back, and then see if you can lift your breastbone and draw a little bit of length across the front body. So a little cat back, a little cobra back, a little cat back, a little cobra, one more time. Now if you have a preference for one of these, maybe you like the cat back shape more, or maybe it's the cobra shape more, that's what you're gonna kind of take and just hold here. And again, I'm gonna turn this leg on. So I'm gonna turn the toes up, I'm gonna engage a little bit, bend the knee, try to lift my kneecap up, so there's just a little bit more activity in the leg. You can do it with a passive leg also, it's just a choice. We want to kind of inhabit our yoga poses and make choices for ourselves. So you want to choose differently, choose differently. I'm going to take 2 more breaths here. And then we're going to come all the way up. And again, you can shake your legs out if it feels good. I'm going to leave mine where they are, but mostly kind of focus on my torso. Getting a little rinse out. Now sometimes I find it really interesting kind of how these poses land in my body. So that particular pose, when I come out of it, it makes my shoulders feel like they got extra muscular. Like I'm sure they don't look this way, but I like this part of my shoulder feels like, oh. I feel like I somehow just inhabited like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's upper body. I know. I don't know what to tell you. But it's just interesting. And again, it's just a sensation thing. There's a little bit more of a sense of kind of something happening there. I haven't quite figured it out. All right, so we're gonna turn the other direction. I don't believe that it is actually more muscular, it's just the way it feels. So we're gonna take this into the side bend, and again, you can add little props here. You can hold onto your leg, you can hold onto the floor. We're going to do just a gentle little roll, so a little bit forward and a little bit backward, a little bit forward, a little bit backward. I'm just doing this a couple more times, and then we'll stay with it for a little while. And if there's a sweet spot somewhere that you're finding here, so on the other side, it felt better to do a little bit more towards the front, but this side, I'm kind of liking this a little more towards the back. So I'm gonna hang with that and engage my leg muscles a little bit to have a little something to push into. One more big breath here, and we're gonna come all the way out of there. All right, so you can bend both knees or straighten both legs. Whatever feels like the right thing to do. Little cat-cowy shapes. And then pause and see if you get that kind of, that little light whooshy, energetic kind of lift there. Ugh. I tell you, I have loved yoga for a long, long time, but like these kinds of really subtle changes, I really did not notice at first. It took a while, maybe because it's just a lot to pay attention to, and so these little subtle sensations are kind of new and fresh and interesting to me, like every time. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of an inversion. Now, I am going to do what I like to refer to as legs up the beanbag chair. If you have a wall handy, you could do legs up the wall. If you don't have a wall handy, but you've got a couch or a chair, you can use the chair for this. You can also use a prop. So I'm going to show you how to build it with some blocks and a pillow. I'll just show you how to build it, and then you put your legs up it, okay? So this is, some people call this Stonehenge pose. So if you have 2 yoga blocks and a yoga bolster, you can build a little structure like that, and then you just throw your legs up over the top of that, okay? If that doesn't work for you, you can do, then you have a chair or your couch, you can do your legs up over that part. Or, if you've got a wall, put your legs up your wall. You just have to have a relatively free space. It doesn't have any artwork or anything on it. And I don't have very many of those. So hence using this beanbag chair here in my corner. Okay, so I'm gonna get myself pretty close to this. So turn sideways, scooch up. I want a blanket because I'm gonna use that under my head. And then once I get my hips pretty close to this, then I'm gonna roll onto my back and let my legs kind of travel up, okay? So if I had a wall, the wall would be, clearly would be more vertical than this, and so I might need a little extra support underneath my hips. So sometimes when I do the wall, because it pulls my legs into this shape, it's nice to have support under the hips. With this, and even with the couch or with a chair, because my knees can be a little bit bent and it's a little bit more of an angle, my pelvis sits really nicely. So just modify it based on how your pelvis sits once you're in this shape. And then I like to have a little bit of something underneath my head. And I'm going to try to get it nice and smooth under my skull, which is not always easy. So there's often little lumps in the blanket. There we go. All right. Now we're going to stay here for a little while, a few minutes. And you can do little things, like you can pedal your feet, you can do little leg jiggles. We'll do some of that at the end also. But you can do little things like that to kind of give yourself a little extra lymphatic movement. One of the reasons that we do an inversion like this is because it helps calm the nervous system. They did a couple of studies in India where they didn't just do this pose, they did a lot of different inversions. Anything that gets your legs up over your head theoretically is going to work like this. But they swabbed people's mouths and then tested the swabs for the presence of stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, like that. And then they did inversions, and then they swabbed their mouths again and tested to see if those same stress hormones were there. And they found, for most people, a reduction in the amount of stress hormone. And they did the study a few times, so they did it with a small sample size and then a larger size and then a larger size again. And even though there was slight fluctuation, the majority of people noticed a reduction in the amount of stress hormones in the bloodstream by as much as 20%, although that was kind of at the high end of the spectrum. But even a little bit of a reduction in stress hormone sounds like a good idea to me. So that's an interesting study. Take it for what it's worth, because all of us are different and unique. But if it can help at all, that sounds like a good idea to me, especially right now. And then there's a couple other benefits, like when we get the legs up, the lymph is able to drain a little bit more easily. So if you have any kind of swelling around the ankles or in the calves or anything like that, a little bit of inverting can help. You might have to do it really gently by just kind of putting your feet up on a pillow, kind of like that Stonehenge to start with. Or you can do something a little more mild. All right, then legs up the chair, legs up the wall, that's the next step up. And then the step beyond that would be things that involve the pelvis coming up as well, all right? There are some benefits, and it also just feels kind of great. So we'll stay for a few more minutes. And if you need to come down, like if you get dizzy or a little lightheaded, then bend your knees, right, and do something a little bit more like that. Make sure your pelvis is the same level as your head, or even you can fold a blanket and elevate your head slightly. That will usually help with that. And then we always want to come out of poses like this very, very slowly. So when we get to that, we're going to take our time. Just let yourself breathe and relax. we're just going to start by bending the knees a little bit more. So I'm going to rest my feet on my little cushion here and do a little kind of, just a little side to side. So if I were up the wall, I might wiggle myself backwards just a little bit, just so I have a little bit of room to place the feet against the wall. I'm going to take one leg and just kind of lift it up in the air, give it a little shimmy, a little shake. I like to shake like I'm trying to let the bones in my foot and my toes kind of flippy flop back and forth. Okay, so take that guy down to the other side. Just give it a little shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. Again, see if you can let the foot get so relaxed that it feels like the bones just kind of go flippy floppy. I'm trying to shake from my thigh muscles. Alright, so then we're going to let that guy come down. Now, we're going to back ourselves up so that we can get a little bit more level, because we're going to take ourselves into Shavasana. I'm going to get a pillow for my legs. Okay, so we're just going to kind of, I do this little wiggle, 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 wiggle. You can roll to your side and move a little bit more cohesively. That would also work. Okay, so I need to go a little farther back. Walking my shoulder blades backwards. Okay, now take your time here, but you can stay with your legs in this kind of bridge position for a few moments. You can roll onto your side if you like and take a few moments there. But we're going to just take ourselves into Shavasana eventually. So we're going to take the legs and kind of work them out straight. And again, you might need to make like small little adjustments. Your clothing or other things, depending on how that just went. I like the pillow when I put one under my legs to be quite high up my leg, but some people like it a little closer to the knee, so you can kind of feel that out. Add support into your head. And we're going to do this little thing for our neck. So if you have a blanket, grab the blanket, put it under your head, and then you're going to lift the blanket up with your hands. You're going to let your head get really heavy and soft. And then you're just going to pull the blanket from side to side. Don't turn your head, just try to let it go along for the ride. You can keep yourself from trying to hyper control with your neck muscles. That would be good. So you're just going to let your arms do the work here, and then come back to the middle, and you can put your head back down. I find that really lovely. Right there at the back of the neck, where the skull and the neck meet, is the place where a lot of the nerves that are responsible for our ability to relax kind of emerge. And so just giving that area of the neck a little feeling of support and structure can be really restful for the nervous system. So get all the little wrinkles out of your blanket. You can tuck it in around your shoulders if you like. And then let yourself just relax. So one of the things I like best about gentle yoga is just let myself have time to slow down and be present and pay attention. I'm being joined inside my blanket by a friend here. Just tight. breath. Let go with a sigh. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Stretch them out. Give your wrist and ankles a little movement. And then we can do some little stretchiness. Bring yourself into a ball. Now we're going to roll into the side and we'll hang out there for a little bit. When you're ready, you can come on up. So thank you for joining me for a gentle yoga morning class. Let's take a big breath together. Nice big inhale. Big deep exhale. Enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.